That's yours, I take it. I'm not sure.
There was a couple because they weren't.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If members of the council could just make sure that your microphone is turned on. I know some of them were not on. Okay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the County Council, March 8, 2022, to order. Councilman Reese, would you lead us in prayer?
Yes, sir. You want a short one or long?
Whatever you would like.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you once again for allowing us to assemble in your name and build in your kingdom. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to help and serve our communities as well as our taxpayers and youth and all those abroad. Father, we ask you that you keep your arms around our first responders and all those who work for the county as they do the work to serve you as well as serve the constituents. Father, we ask you to put your arms around all the leaders across the country, our president, and Father, also put a special kindness for the situation in the war that's going on, Father, and all those youth and people who are going through that, Father. We know you know all and you do all, Father, and in your name we pray. Amen.
You'll join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Todd, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilman Reese?
Here.
Councilman Likens?
Here.
Councilman Alexander?
Here.
Councilman Steele?
Here.
Councilman Emery?
Here.
Councilman Bond?
Present.
President Gale?
Here. I would take a motion now to approve the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 meeting.
Mr. President, I want to make a clarification. Do I do that now?
Sure.
Okay. On the last meeting, which was on February the 8th, I made a statement regarding Miss Beatrice Ramsey, who is now our HR, African-American female. We were questioning her I stated that she had worked the job for 6 months and was worked a job where she was doing 2 jobs for 6 months and finally got compensated 6 months later. I was wrong. I was told and corrected that it took a year before she was compensated for working 2 jobs, as well as she was never retro for the time that she did work the 2 jobs. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Make sure that's clear in the record.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that the minutes be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Reese and a second by Councilman Vaughn. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. For tonight's agenda, I have been asked by the prosecutor's office to strike the miscellaneous funds pretrial diversion fund 2501, so we won't be hearing that tonight. So with that, with that being the case, would there be a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I'll second.
Okay, we had a motion by Councilman Vaughn and a second by Councilman Steele. Or Emery, either way. Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. Tonight, as we continue to refine the processes of our meetings, there are different requests that come before the council. For any new money requests, these would be general fund requests, public safety requests, tonight ARPA funding, those types of things. We are going to be opening up for public comment to allow the public to speak to those, and that should be just a standard occurrence in our meetings from this point on. We do need to have some guidelines to make this work efficiently and healthy. First thing that I'll ask is once I open up for public comment, which would be after there's a presentation about that topic, that request, I'll ask for members of the public who would like to speak to approach the podium. I'll call them up. When they get to the podium, they'll need to state their name and address, and stick to speaking on the topic that is being discussed. We're going to keep comments to 3 minutes or less, just to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak that wants to. And then the other thing for members of the council, this is our time to listen to the public. It's not really a time for discussion back and forth. One of the things we all have to remember is we're each 1/7 of an opinion of the council. And so if questions are asked, we might be able to take notes and send that information to the right person to get the member of the public an answer to a question. But as a body, it takes a vote to make a decision. So we just have to be careful that we're not portraying it as one member of the council answering on behalf of the entire council. So it's really our time to listen there. And then the last point would just be for members of the public and for ourselves, just to be respectful. We may not always agree, but like I say, we can be respectful and we can make this happen in a healthy manner. So with that being said, we're going to move on.
Councilman,
Oh, yes, sir.
If also, I want to remind the audience, we need to get back in routine of when you have something to say, don't yell it out from the audience. Normally, procedures, all council meetings through the state of Indiana, we come up to the podium, state
Right.
your first name. That keeps it a little organized and not shouting, and
Right.
Councilman Gale has to gavel, and it's not fun to do that. So, keep ordinance and ordinary council meeting and a flow that it's respectful to the council and to you guys. So if you can step up to the podium and, say your name, address, but I just want to add that we just kind of got away from that. So.
And thank you, Councilman Vaughn. I do also want to share, I received many messages after last month's meeting regarding members of the public who were sitting in the audience who were just not able to hear because there was a lot of conversation going on in the audience. And so that's something that I'm not always able to track because I'm trying to help us stick to our agenda. But I will ask, just be respectful. This isn't a place for conversation. If there's conversation that needs to happen, you can excuse yourself, have the conversation outside so that you're not disrupting the meeting for others in the audience. So I would appreciate if that would be the case.
Also, I want to add to it, recently it was mentioned that the council has not been transparent in communicating with people, the public especially, and I just want to remind everybody we have a representative style of government, and I represent a district, just as some of the other council members represent a district. Our email addresses are posted online, and I believe some of our phone numbers are posted online as well. So if somebody wanted a copy of the agenda, for example, they could send an email to any one of these council members. The at-large members represents the whole county, and we would be able to send you an agenda if you ask for it. The agenda is also posted online, and if you want to call the auditor's office, you can also get the agenda. It's concerning when your county council has been accused of not being transparent, when in reality the information is there, it's available. If you ask for it, we'll provide it, and that's the facts.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to the auditor's report.
All right.
Good evening, council. Todd, are you going to be able to get that up for us? Okay. So can the audience see that okay? It's kind of at an angle for me. So I wanted to go over some numbers, where the council was at and kind of where they've been heading and where we are today. So basically, we're going to look at some major fund spending over the last several years. Major fund spending, or a combination of general fund and co-op fund, from 2018 and before. I'm kind of reading what you're seeing on the screen. And the public safety funds have been relatively stable from 2016 through 2021, with an uptick in 2021 related to the CARES Act reimbursement of public safety money, which actually was required to be moved to the general fund. So you'll see a little uptick there. Overall, the county council's been able to keep a tight rein on the spending throughout this period. So if we can move forward, you'll see a graph there of spending starting in 2016. In 2017, I believe that uptick there on the public safety is in the red. That number is because that is the year, I believe, Fred was on the council, I was on the council, Lisa Cannon, which is your IT director, and Robin Wagner, which works in my office now, or has worked in my office and used to be on the council. We took it upon ourselves, the council working with the commissioners during that period of time, 17-18, on building a public safety complex, which included MCCC, work release, and the dispatch center. On top of that, we purchased the radio system for the entire county, and including cities and towns at that time. They've got agreements now, I think, to replace their own radios as they go. But that uptick in the public safety that year is because we took $1 million of public safety money and purchased one building, and then we financed two buildings. If Fred's with me on this, we financed one at $1.2 million, one at $1.3 million, and then outright purchased and built the third building, which was we spent about $1 million on that. So that's the reason for the uptick on the public safety in 2017. During 2017, 18, and 19, if you recall, Fred, we started spending $1,225,000 a year on our portion of the bridge. The bridge was, I don't remember the number it came in at. I have to look back. I do remember our portion, which was $1,250,000, $225,000 a year for 3 years at $3.75 million. During that same time, the council had to address the remediation of asbestos within the county building. The county took on a $3.5 million bond to do that, but along with that, there was about another $3 million that was spent in the remediation process, updating some offices, and a lot of things. Some of those things you can see, and some of those things are in walls and ceilings and in basements where the public might never see that. I think Fred and I talked about this the other day. $1.5 million we had to spend just on the boiler system for the building, which was part of that money. So part of that public safety complex idea was to also get out of paying about $500,000 a year in rent to someone locally to rent buildings for that that work release project or work release center. So we were able to get out of that and build our own facilities. And then now, if we can go on to debt reduction, this will just show a picture related to that. The county council, of course, we've been working hard and talking a lot about it. You'll hear me talk a lot about the debt and things we've been able to do over the last few years. We started out in 2018 with a debt of $14,284,000 and change. Some of that, a big portion of that was the radio system, $10 million on the radio system, the work release, the Star Bank building that we have over here. And in 2019, we reduced that debt to $12,186,000. In 2020, we paid off the 2015 A bonds, which was part of the work release complex down there. The first, let me back up a minute. When we financed that, Fred, we tried to go about a 5-year bond on that. I think we ended up a little over 5 years, but got down less than 6 years anyway to pay those off. So we got that debt down to $12,186,000. In 2020, that debt dropped to $9,759,000. And then we were able to, like I said, able to pay off the 2015 bonds. In 2021, we paid off the Series B bond, which was part of that same complex, including the dispatch center, and got the debt down to $8.1 million. Can you pull that debt reduction graph up? Okay, so here's where our debt was in 2017, and now in 2021 where we sit. So we started at 14 million, and we're down to $8 million. Most of that is related to, all but about $3 million of that is related to the central dispatch center and the radio systems that we had to purchase. So if we move on to cash balances for the general fund, you've heard me say many times we need $9 to $9.5 million in order to cash flow the budget without having to take a tax anticipation draw. What that would mean is if you got in a pinch, those pinches happened in May and November. If we were to get in a pinch, we would have to take a draw early on our tax draw. We've not had to do that recently. There was a time when back a few years back, we did have to do that because our cash balance wasn't high enough. So it's imperative that as you go through your year, I'm keeping tracks this year on where you're at between that 9 and 9.5. It really cannot be under 9, and you're going to hear me say you don't have any money to appropriate. It's no different than like we dealt with the public safety fund last month and not going over our revenue. So it's the same thing in the general fund. It doesn't change. It's just that sometimes there's management tools like taking a tax anticipation loan, but that's not the way it's designed to do. You should always have your money first, spend it, and then get your money again, spend it again, not spend it and then get it replenished. It's not really the way it works. So if you look at the next graph, you'll see the general fund cash balance. You'll see those years where we were struggling a little bit. You'll see those years where we were building the bridge, remediation of the county building. Those type items that we spoke of just a few minutes ago are in those years where you see that dip. Then if you move on to the next slide, you're at the rainy day. Rainy day fund, financial advisors will tell you we need 10 to 15% in the rainy day fund of your annual budget. If you'll look, you'll see Hamilton County, which people have a habit of comparing us to them, and they should not. But the counties that are in our same population class, and the way Association of Indiana Counties class us is the class that we're in is populations of 100 to 150,000. We're at a little less than 130,000. So you'll see Delaware County with $609,000 in their rainy day fund, clear up to smaller counties than us with almost $7 million in their rainy day fund. We believe that we need to be at $6 million minimum to hit our mark. In 2020, we ended the year with $36,000 in our rainy day fund. Todd, could you go on to the next one? So you'll see where our rainy day was back in 2016. Moving forward, again, those years you see it trending down are the years we were building the dispatch center, all those things, the bridge, remediation. So last year we took it upon ourselves to put money monthly into the rainy day fund starting in 2021. We built that. We had planned on 12 months to get us to a $1.2 million balance. We done better than that because we found some tax sale funds as a tax sale fund that has any revenue left in it from a tax sale that's 3 years old and the person does not claim any surplus in that you'll hear me from time to time come to the council and ask for that money to be placed in the general fund. We added that to that and ended up the year at before it was over $1.9 million. Now the next slide you're going to look at is an estimate for next year or the end of this year. Last year we put $100,000 a month in that to get to that 1.2 and had those other funds got us to that 1.9. This year we went with $150,000 a month to get us another $1.8 million. added to that, plus a variety of other items when we had money left. And we're anticipating by the end of the year to be at $5.7 million in our rainy day fund. Madison County, to my knowledge, has never had that kind of well, according to my 40-year employee in my office, Madison County has never had that kind of rainy day fund. So we're happy to see those numbers. The next slide has got to do with interest income. I'm going to pat Dan Gerd on the back a little bit. Dan has earned, well, I think it was last month, he hit his $1 million mark in the general fund for investments in the general fund loan, not counting his other funds that he earns interest in, but the general fund loan over his time period has generated $1 million in interest. If you look at the next slide, there's Dan up there in the corner. He's a rock star to us, but here is his. Here is the years of interest earned starting in 2000. I can't see that from here. 2013. It's sort of flat line across there, and then his investments in 2019. I will tell you this. Several years ago, the state went to the Trust Indiana that you can take your local monies, put it in Trust Indiana, supposed to earn the best rates and all that. And Dan in 2019, he didn't go there, but he went to the local banks and basically said, hey, I'm going to move my money to Trust Indiana. And they said, oh, wait a minute, we'll give you the Fed rate. So Dan has been getting the Fed rate, and you can see it spiked in 2019. That's the Fed rate actually in 17 and 18 were higher than in 19, but Dan was successful in getting that Fed rate secured with the bank and spiked his investment revenue, and then it's trended down a little bit just simply because rates have dropped to nothing. Unfortunately for us, that Fed rate, they're predicting 5 increases in the interest rate. For us as individuals, that's not a great thing if you're going out to get a home mortgage or whatever. But Todd, can you go on to that next slide, or is that? You'd have to go back. If you look at the slide before that, you'll find that they are planning on up to, from what we're hearing, up to 5 increases in the rate. So for investing purposes for Dan, that's going to be a good thing. Unfortunately, if you're going out to get a home mortgage, that might not be what you want to see. So really what we're showing here is your debt has been reduced. Your major spending is held even over the last 5 or 6 years, fairly level. Your debt reduction you've had a drop of $6 million in debt. Your cash balances have dipped and then gone back up in 2021. Then your rainy day fund has skyrocketed to $5.7 million by the end of this year. It's sitting at $4.4 million today. I checked early this afternoon. So your debt is heading south. The other numbers you're wanting to see increase are going in that direction rapidly. So I'm happy to see these numbers. It's comforting where I sit to see that we are getting some stable numbers and getting ourselves in good fiscal shape. So,
thank you, Rick. Are there any questions for the auditor? All right. Well, thank you for everything you and your office are doing to help us keep moving in that direction.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Under new business, the first item is North Madison County Public Library appointment. I didn't know if anybody from the library was here tonight. Usually these just get submitted to us. They are wanting to reappoint Kenny Geiselbach to their library board, or Giselbach. So typically the council just makes a motion and votes on their recommendation. So if there's anyone that would like to make that motion.
Make a motion to nominate first.
Okay. So
On those.
we have a motion by Councilman Vaughn and a second by Councilman Reese. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. Next, we have out-of-state travel for the assessor.
President Gale, members of the council, we're here this evening seeking approval for out-of-state travel for continuing education. We have a GIS and assessor's conference that's coming up, and all the attendees will be level 3, which the state requires them to be a level 3 to value properties for ad valorem purposes. And the funds necessary to pay for this will not be taken out of the general fund, but out of the sales disclosure fund, which is a fund that's designated by the state for assessors continuing ed. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Mr. Davis, how long does your levels take? You got 3 levels in your office so just some people know that education-wise about your office, because you got 3 levels through the state. Can you kind of tell me like what level 1, how long, level 2, level 3, and kind of the bridge, the stair step to that?
Well, there's a lot of tests involved. The level 1, of course, is the entry. Level 2, those tests are given by the state, and then the state General Assembly passed that you have to be a level 3 to value properties for tax purposes. So that's a more extensive program, but then after you receive those levels, then you have to have a certain number of continuing ed every year.
So the
to
state
maintain
requires that?
They do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I've got a question. Having been an assessor on a township level, I know that it's kind of a hard work to make sure you get everything assessed, and I think that in Union Township, where I was an assessor, in a couple of years we increased the assessment $12 million, and which, that didn't sound like it, probably to you it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but I thought it was important. But along with what our auditor has presented this evening, and I know I didn't ask you this ahead of time, so maybe it would just be by guess and by gosh, but how are we doing in assessed values in the county, so that, because that's where our revenue comes, and I just want to know if you have any feel for, I know there's some communities that's had significant increases in assessed values. I just was curious where you're thinking that we're going to finally end up at.
In Madison County, we have approximately 85,000 parcels. And if you look at the home sales, which we look at trending each and every year, there's no question that home values have increased since last January to this January. But I don't have those figures with me. I know that we're working right now. We have to roll those values to the auditor by July 1st, and we'll have an answer closer to that time.
So it's fair to say that it's increasing based on those assumptions.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right? Okay.
All right. Any other questions regarding the out-of-state travel for the assessors?
Make a motion to approve.
All right. We have a motion by Councilman Vaughn and a second by Councilman Reese. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have another out-of-state travel request by the auditor's office.
Good afternoon again. I could just say ditto. This is basically the same conference that Larry and his staff are going to for a little bit different reason for us. A lot of theirs is to do with assessing, which we will get into some of those classes also, but GIS mapping, among other property value items. But one thing that's important to us is when we go to transfer properties is reading of legal descriptions. We found ourselves, about a year ago, losing someone in the office that had been in the mapping department for 24 years, I believe. and had to scramble to find someone that actually came from that field. And it was hard to find at that time. So we are planning on traveling, with your permission, to the GIS parcel mapping conference also. Our funding for that will come from our plat book maintenance fund, which can only be used for the perpetuation of plat book items, which is parcel platting, mapping, transferring, such as that. I currently have $307,656 in that. I think we spent $50 last month on a claim. We bought something for that area, so we're not going to run short there, and would desire your permission to allow us to travel to that conference to get some education and bring it back to the county.
Thank you.
Make a motion approved.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Bond,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Likens. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next we come to transfers. We have a smaller list of transfers this month, I believe. Would there be a motion to entertain any of these?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the transfers by Councilman Emery, a second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The transfers are approved. Next, new money, miscellaneous funds. We have the courts, Jim Hunter or Debbie Blackman. I've got both of your names on my agenda, so I don't know who's...
Well, I'll front for all that, but Debbie's name is on it because she's the brains behind this outfit. So, council members, these are grants. All three of these. I'm not sure what the DOC Prosecutor Fund 9146 item is that's on here because I didn't turn that on, or turn that request in. But two of these grants, all three of these grants have been received. This is the third consecutive year that we've gotten money for those. The first grant that you see up above here is called the Madison County Addiction Response Fund. The case manager position that is shown here, and that's the entire amount of money of their salary and benefits, was provided by the Indiana Supreme Court. And the case manager works in our pretrial release program. The person that does this job goes to the jail and administers a risk assessment tool called the IRAS PAT, and that risk assessment tool helps us determine who can be released under pretrial release conditions. For those of you that don't understand exactly what pretrial release is, it is a program that is it's codified under Indiana Code, which means that we're required to do it, and we were required to begin participating in 2020, and so that's why we had applied for the grant in 2020. And I have some information on it that I can pass out to you, but essentially, jail overcrowding is a huge problem, obviously, around the state. You're aware that people are building facilities. We're talking about building one right now. A lot of the people that cause the overcrowding problem are people that will be they're charged with, I don't want to say minimal crimes, but lower level felonies, and they would be out of jail in most cases if they had $500 to post. There are a lot of people that simply can't get out of jail because of that. So that, the pretrial release program seeks to evaluate those people, and the ones that are considered safe for release are the ones that get out without posting bond. We have a pretrial case manager, two actually. The other grant that I'm going to talk about has one too, and a probation officer that supervises these people. We currently have 242 people on pretrial release and 549 people who have been released throughout the duration of the program. So 3 people that are responsible for managing those people. So those are people that are not in your jail. It was a godsend given that COVID descended upon us, and it was catastrophic effect on the jail. Obviously, they had to get people out. So this particular request is for the case manager. Once again, no cost to the county whatsoever. So there is a line here on professional services and a list and a line here 390 other services and charges. That money is for the problem-solving courts. It is for let me think. They have a psychologist, staff psychiatrist that works with them. There's a little bit of money for him, and there are incentive monies and various rewards for the problem-solving courts people when they do well. So that pretty much summarizes the entire grant. So the pretrial fund here at the bottom, 96 or 9169, that is money also for a pretrial case manager, the second one. So again, no cost to the county, money provided by the Supreme Court for us to staff this. So those are the 2 pretrial grants. The other grant is completely unrelated to that. So my office handles all 3 of those grants. So I will talk about the other grant. I actually have some, yes. But first of all, does anybody have any questions about the pretrial grants?
Jim, right now the grant will take care of the person in that position. What happens once the grant is gone?
Well, we would have to, one of 2 things. We would either have to ask for money, or we'd have to retool the program. What I can tell you is the stakeholders involved in this process are not inclined to come to the council asking for money for this. There are other ways to do this. We are currently operating under the state's optimum guidelines. Judge Coaster was in the prosecutor's office. He was one of the people that helped us develop our pretrial program, along with the judges. We worked with the Supreme Court and the Indiana Office of Court Services. So currently we are doing this the way they want us to do it. But there are supposed to be some funding streams coming from DOC and some of those places, because obviously they don't want to take our people. That's pretty obvious, I think, at this point. So at least not our lower felony people. So we have discussed what our options are if we don't get money from the state or the Indiana Office of Court Services, but we would probably attempt to do this in a different fashion. We would probably release less people under pretrial release, but right now we're hopeful that there'll be a different funding stream besides these, because we can continue to get money from these grants, but we won't be able to get as much money. We got in on the front end of this. We were, I think, the 10th or 11th county that got involved in this, and as such, we were able to get quite a bit of grant money up front. But now all the counties in the state are participating in one way or another, and everybody's coming for grant money. So DOC is very interested in seeing this program continue, so we're hopeful there'll be more money. So, but we understand that this is not something that you want to fund.
Mr. Hunter? When's the start of this grant starts? These grants, when does it start?
2020, January of 2020.
January 20, they started. How long are they designed to go for the grants last? Like a year?
1 year, yes.
So it's 1 year at a time.
1 year at a time, that's correct.
So this new one would be for 22?
That's just for 22,
Just
that's
for
correct.
22. Okay, thank you.
The last grant that I have is the Bosnia grant. I've talked quite a long time here, so I'll try to make this quick. Bosnia stands for Volunteer Advocates for Senior and Incapacitated Adults. I've got I got some forms here.
Rick, I'm not seeing this one on the agenda. Did it not make it on?
Guardian Advocates.
Oh, Guardian Advocates, okay.
9137.
Got it, thank you.
So, yes, you don't see it as VASIA, but that's what it actually stands for, is Volunteer Advocates for Senior and Incapacitated Adults. This is an underserved community. It's elderly people who, as you're well aware, some people, they're living to be 80, 90, 100, and all their family members are gone, and they no longer can manage their own affairs. So, a local attorney, John Longacre, actually is the person who writes the grant and administers the program. They recruit volunteer advocates to assist seniors and incapacitated adults with their affairs, manage their money, help them get medical services, all kinds of things. And there are community partners involved with all of this, community hospital, St. Vincent's Ascension, lots of smaller businesses as well. This $109,617 that you see here is money that's left over from past years. Like everything else, the program slowed down some during COVID. It's picking back up again now. They got an award for $56,000 this year. So this is the entire amount. They're allowed to use these funds in perpetuity. So the $109,000 is what's left over currently, plus the $56,000 that they're receiving this year.
So would there be a motion, and just for clarity here, this would be for the Madison County Addiction Response Fund 8188, Guardian Advocates Grant Fund 9137, and Pretrial Grant Fund 9169.
Make a motion approved.
Okay. I'm sorry, would you mind coming up here, Debbie?
We got another one?
Yay.
Oh, there's four. Oh, there is.
What's that?
Ron will turn that in for public. It's grant management, and you need to appropriate for those.
No, okay.
Did
Well,
Ron do that? Did Ron turn it in?
do you know who turned it? I don't know who turned it.
I think Rhonda did.
Okay, so I guess this is actually it says prosecutor fund, but I guess it's for problem solving courts. And it's just for personnel, I guess, since it's FICA and PERF. Yeah.
You in agreement? Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, well then, we know these are all grant funds, and
Yeah.
so, anyway. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn.
Second.
Second by Councilman Reese. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Rick, how you apply for these jobs?
I'm sorry?
How do you apply for these positions? How do you go and apply for these positions?
Oh, we're posted.
They're posted.
Actually, the CJC is the agency that actually has the funding. They don't want to give it directly to probation because then you have built-in raises with that. So CJC actually has the funding. I wrote the grant, and they are the ones that post the jobs and hire. And they have, both of those positions are currently, they're filled. So, but there has been some turnover in it because it's not, I don't know, case manager wise, it's a little bit on the low end of the pay scale. So,
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Commissioners. John Richline, the Wind Farm Economic Development Fund.
Hello, everyone. We'll go ahead and withdraw that request at this time. Yeah. Elwood's still working on their proposal. They're real close, but they've got a few loose ends that they can get tied up, and I think it'll make the entire presentation a little bit better for the commissioners and for you guys as well. So if we just put that off a little bit, I'm pretty sure they'll be back.
Okay. So next then we have the ARPA funds with Jessica Baston.
Good evening, Jessica Baston with the County Engineer's Office. I was asked to come tonight to talk to you a little bit about the ARPA funds and the proposal that we have in front of you this evening. There's a lot of paperwork involved in ARPA, in case you haven't guessed that. So tonight we're talking about the first of what we anticipate being 3 rounds of the ARPA proposals. Several weeks ago, we reached out to department heads throughout the county and asked them to submit ideas that they had that were related to the ARPA funding, what they would like to do with it. And the results of that are, for the first round, are here today. Now, I want to make sure that I say that, well, let's back up. We got 40 proposals in that totaled about $5.4 million. So we got a great response. And we know that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot out there to do. The short list that you have in front of you, if you don't have a copy of it, let us know. I know Rick has some, and I have some extras as well. That represents the ones that we have vetted and have reviewed and we're ready to move forward on. That doesn't mean that the proposals that aren't on this list are not valid proposals. That doesn't mean that they don't qualify for the funds. It just means that there was some part of it that we need to work through in a little more detail. Whether it be the eligibility of the fund or the detail that was provided, the cost justification, and so forth. And so on this list, I'm just going to run through it kind of quickly for you, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. The list is really divided into 4 parts. The first roughly 12 proposals on there, excuse me, they focus on the effects of COVID in our society, in our government, and then mitigating the effects and then preparing for any future pandemics. So, for example, we have a couple of proposals from the jail and the sheriff's department. Those were to address expenses that were incurred to mitigate COVID, and then also to add some resiliency to their facilities to prepare for any future outbreaks that could occur. We have a couple of proposals from the courts, one from the defender's office and one from the prosecutor's office. Those are just 2 of many proposals that they had submitted. The others are ones that we need to vet a little further as far as making sure that the eligibility is valid on them, and just kind of work to address overlaps with the different proposals. And those are really to focus on addressing the backlogs in the court systems, as I'm sure you all are aware. There's quite the backlog from the trial juries being shut down for a period of time. We have some proposals from the health department and then other facilities, or excuse me, departments to really add some resiliency and some more durability to our facilities here in the county to be able to address future concerns for pandemic and to address some of the situations that we encountered during COVID. And then also some additional facilities, or excuse me, proposals to add resiliency for our IT systems, emergency announcement systems, and so forth. When we get down to the recorder's office and the commissioner's office, we have 2 proposals that focus on digitizing records that are kept here at the courthouse. So right now, if the public wants to view these records, they have to come physically to the courthouse. Obviously, during the pandemic, that was not feasible, not able to happen. So these proposals are the first of several that will look at bringing those records online, making them more accessible to the public, and adding a different level of transparency to them. And then moving on, we've got a grant match for Kilbuck Creek. That's our first infrastructure project that we're proposing. The surveyor's office is pursuing funds for removing some of the obstructions in Kilbuck Creek, and this will provide the matching funds for that. And then finally, the last section, these are the ones that really focus on bringing us out of the pandemic and providing the economic boost that the county needs. These specific ones were targeted for this at this point in time because they really lay the foundation for what we would need for future infrastructure projects that would be funded not only through ARPA, but also through the infrastructure funds, ready grants, and so on. So we're looking at transportation planning, wastewater and drinking water planning, stormwater planning, and then potentially forming a county parks department. So that's kind of a quick overview of it. I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's anything on specific requests or the process or whatever I can do to help. Yes.
Would you help us understand the process? I think Sherry might have some answers to that.
Sure. The process, the way that we worked was and again, this is the first of what we anticipate probably 3 rounds. We reached out to department heads and we had a form, and this is the results of the forms. These are the forms that were submitted. And we asked the department heads to take a look at their operations and give us their thoughts on what could qualify for this. And so they went through and they submitted the proposals, and the proposal form included information about the basis of the proposal, the needs. It outlined the problems that it solved, the financial situation. You know, why hasn't this been funded in the past, or what is there a long-term need for funding, and if there is, where is that long-term funding coming from? And to be honest, that was one kind of sticking point, I guess, for a lot of the proposals is, you know, we need to make sure that we're not creating a situation that in 2026, when the ARPA funding runs out, we have all these unfunded initiatives. And so we need to make sure that we have that lined up and thought through. And then once those proposals were submitted, there was a lot of reviewing them, looking for completeness, for the justifications that were needed, the supporting documentation on costs and so forth. And the ones that were complete, for lack of a better way of explaining it, were advanced and discussed, and Council of Governments worked through a scoring process, and then we took them to commissioners last week, and then we're taking them to you tonight.
Another question. The ARPA funding federal program that actually ended up changing differently than CARES Act funding. CARES Act funding, they expanded that, made it easier to get, where the ARPA funding, they tightened the restrictions. The federal government, the state of Indiana actually approved some READY grants without realizing that the Fed had restricted the utilization of those funds. And so now there's a problem in terms of those READY grants. Have you guys checked those and maybe double checked to make sure that the most recent?
Yes. I read the rule. I read the latest rule, and we have been going through it and consulting with our legal counsel. The good thing about this, too, is there's a little more flexibility, and Rick can speak to this much better than I can. But there's a lost revenue provision within this act. So within this act, we have a little bit of flexibility from that, which allows us to do some different things that maybe aren't explicitly stated in the act. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility than the READY program had.
Okay.
Are there any other questions by the council?
I have one, Ms. Madison. Sure. I looked through some of these proposals, and I like a lot of them. I really do. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
I do. I guess in the considering process with this process, which I wish I was able to sit in on that, and I didn't know if I was able to, but as a councilman. But my concern is maybe to look into, maybe John, if you don't mind, is two components here. Again, I'm not, you're the expert, and so I'm kind of, I haven't got to look through how you guys do everything, but any equipment or anything with the court, I think Judge Hoppy has stated earlier, I don't know if it was late last year or earlier in the year, to redo a courtroom. I think there were some issues with the room. So is there anything we can use of that so we don't have to?
Potentially, yes.
To maybe not take out a general fund and maybe use that HARPA money for that. And I guess my second thing is, what are the taxpayers going to see out of that? I know sometimes it's hard to say, well, they're not going to see inside of Mr. Kane's proposal, which is a great proposal, by the way. We hope you don't see inside. Right. So I'm just kind of asking for, I like to, I guess, to stay the same with, I followed a little bit of Anderson City Council and what they were doing and the questions saw some of the public. So I didn't know if there's maybe some expenses, Mr. Richwine and Ms. Bastion, that we can maybe offset with this HARPA, maybe we need, and we can fit in here. We don't have to take later out of the general fund.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some of that, including probably one of the courts, but or some money that's spent in the courts, maybe I should say. But also in the long run, there's a lot of things that we're setting up that are going to set up the basis for what's to come in the future, and hopefully there's some money left that we can do some of these things with the ARPA funding at the end. But also to be able to have those things in place that when other grants become available or other monies locally become available, we know where to go and how to spend that money appropriately, so we have a plan in place. I do think that with the things that we're looking at, you're not going to maybe see some immediate things, but in the long run and towards the end of my lifetime, I think you're going to see some really cool results from this. So
Okay.
I'm excited about it because I think it's going to lay a lot of really, really good groundwork for the future.
Yeah, I'd specifically point you to the last section of the proposals, starting with the thoroughfare plan on the second page. These are the proposals that I think of as the economic development encouragers. Right now, we have a lot of great ideas here in the county with respect to infrastructure and long-term planning, but we don't have them consolidated and solidified. And that's really the objective of these first proposals, these proposals at the end. And the reason they're kind of pushed through in the beginning is, just like John said, the goal is to get this planning component completed so that in 2 years, when we are looking at our last round of potential ARPA projects, we are maybe able to start funding some of the actual implementation of some of this. I mean, and I will talk about this for hours because this is my background, but one of the key components to economic development is infrastructure. And this really is intended to lay the framework for that. When you look at the roads.
We do have some issues in our county.
And there's just so many opportunities. I like that word better than issues, so. But this is a great opportunity for us to be able to invest
the
in money.
wastewater, of course, I'm probably interested in this because
Of
I work in
course, yes.
wastewater.
We have
but
similar backgrounds in that
wastewater
respect.
infrastructure and management needs to say, can you explain to me just a short?
And actually, the wastewater, drinking water, and stormwater are all very similar in this.
Right.
It's basically to look at the county as a whole, to look at the areas that we currently have served through the existing utilities, whether it be the city utilities, the town utilities, the sewer district, and identify what areas are served and where our gaps are, what areas are not served that need to be served, and then look at the different managerial options for that, whether it's expanding of existing districts for the sewer districts or creating a new utility potentially for that. And that's kind of the goal there. That will set us up to be able to pursue funding through the Indiana Finance Authority State Revolving Loan Fund for water, wastewater projects.
So, John, does this interconnect with the south part of the county that Pendleton planned to grow? So this kind of goes into the point of, like you said, plan ahead of, Pendleton area growing to 40,000. Obviously, not everyone's going to be in the town of Pendleton. So this is what we're looking at, kind of growth beyond just today doing studies and.
Right, and not only growth, but I mean, this could be existing housing additions that have issues, and how do you reach out and help these folks solve?
And how about drainage?
That would be the stormwater initiative that's on the list, yes.
All right, thank you.
I tried to cover them all.
No.
The one that's not on there right now is broadband, and that's because we didn't have the opportunity to flesh out that proposal. We do intend to look at that, certainly, because that is a huge need in the county. It just wasn't ready for this round of funding.
And there's also a lot of additional funding.
Right.
Right.
That broadband proposal was my next question, because I noticed it wasn't on here, but that's a high priority of the ARPA funding.
And it's also a high priority in the state of Indiana.
Yeah,
There's a lot of state
Yes,
money
yes.
available that you can utilize.
Yeah, the community match can come from the ARPA funding, and also it could come from the state. So I think that I've had some conversations with the board presidents of Frankton and Summitville and some of the other smaller communities that are in my district, and they really this could be very helpful to what they're trying to accomplish there.
And that is one of the key parts of these initiatives, is we're going to bring together the community leaders from the different utilities from the different towns to get those discussions happening so that we're all working together. I mean, that's a big key to it, to my perspective.
And Councilman Gale, if I may, I want to give someone props behind you there. Mr. Kane, I spent 4 hours with Mr. Kane. I think that, I know Commissioner Richwine was part of hiring him. That was a great hire. He's very professional. He's got a background, and that wasn't an easy job to come into. I think you would agree with me on that. So that proposal, I actually called Mr. Kane on that, and he put a lot of time in that. I met with him for 4 hours over there, and everything he told me in that. So I appreciate that, Mr. I know you put a lot of work in that. So I just want to say good job to Mr. Kane. He has my support definitely on that one. So, and I'm done.
Are there any other questions by members of the council for the ARPA Round 1 proposals? If not, if I could ask you guys to take a seat, and we may need you here in a little bit.
Don't
Don't
go
go too far. But we'll go ahead and open up to some public comments. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak, you could go ahead and come to the podium. And again, I'll have you introduce yourself, name and address.
My name is John Bostic. My address is 1907 Mimosa Lane. What I see here, I'm not against, but I'm mixed, because we just passed the public safety tax, court tax. I don't see why we ain't had enough money. It was important enough for us to do these projects through that tax. That should be a question that the council should ask. I'm not saying these are bad ideas, but I'm saying that we just promoted, put a lot of pressure on taxpayers out there to support these things. Come May 10th, we'll be paying more money for taxes, for public safety. I'm not knocking it, but these things should have been in there. The next thing I want to ask is this $25 million, is it open for everybody in the city of Anderson? That means the Anderson Township. Can anybody tell me that?
We could address that here shortly. Actually, if you'd like to, Jessica.
I can't speak to the public safety tax. That is way outside of my lane. But as far as whether it's who it's open to, and John may want to jump in, our initial round was targeting the internal, the department heads. We have actually received requests from different stakeholders from different communities, and I think we will consider them just as we will every other one. So I would be happy to talk with you if you have a specific, if you want the information about how to submit a proposal.
What I would like to know, because in your some funds that come into this county, the citizens of Anderson in the 4416 zip code do not qualify for those funds. And I want to know, do we qualify for these funds?
Well, as Jessica said, if you'd like to talk with her afterwards, that's not something that council can really answer right here. So, John, did you have something you want to say?
I would just say that, most every city, municipality in the county got ARPA funding.
Right.
That is for us to decide how to utilize. So the city of Anderson has theirs, the county has theirs. We're looking at things that will benefit the entire county in a broad spans. And so I think that at the end of the day, there may be some projects that involve partnering with other communities. But I think that we need to take care of all of our issues that we want to accomplish first. Other communities have got their funding. We need to take care of ourselves. And when we get towards the end and we have some of these other planning things in place, then we'll be able to decide appropriately. if we have additional monies left, how we want to spend those.
Right. Okay, thank you. So we're going to continue moving on with public comments now. Is there some? Okay, well, we're trying to stick to about 3 minutes, and the questions are taking time. If you'd like to conclude. Okay. Is there anyone next?
I just want to say that I appreciate that the council is taking public comment tonight, and I wondered if this is going to continue through the rest of the council meetings for this year.
Could you introduce yourself real quickly?
Yeah, I apologize. Laureen White, 11 Pointwood Drive.
Okay, thank you. The intent is for, as I mentioned earlier during council president's comments, and this is one of the few questions we probably can't answer here, but the intent is for any new money requests that are out of general fund, public safety fund, things like that, not necessarily the grant funding that's just a simple appropriation. The idea is to include public comment on all of those moving forward.
And then, so just, I had a couple of questions about ARPA stuff, and I just wondered, again, I'm very happy that there's public comment, but where could the general public find information about how the ARPA fund is working, who can submit a request, how they submit a request, what request proposals have been submitted to you or to the council, basically anything. I look it up online, I can't find anything.
I would suggest afterwards, if you want to talk to Jessica Baston, or if you'd like to answer it now.
We're working on that. This first round was intentionally done very quickly because we knew we had these outstanding departmental needs that really needed to be addressed as soon as possible. We are working on the broader ideas for how to engage the public. We've discussed different things about putting it onto the website, and I think that's where we're headed with it. We're also working on targeting meetings with different specific stakeholder groups throughout the county. So it's a work in progress, and that's what I've been saying about all of this. Just like with any other major federal program, everything's constantly changing, and so we're just trying to stay ahead of this as best we can. So,
Ms. Patchen.
yeah.
Councilman Lamont, could we just make sure we get to Ms. White first?
I just want, well, okay.
I'll let you follow up afterwards. I just don't want to cut her off in her time here.
Oh, no worries. And I just had a couple of additional questions about where to find the information, and hopefully you all can answer or get back to me about that. I know that Jerry earlier had talked about transparency and making sure that you can contact your council member. I think that's fantastic as well. But when I looked on the county's website, the only email address that I saw was Diana's. If I click on anyone else's name, there's no email. So where would the public find your email?
They're supposed to be there. I know there's been a lot of work on the website, and that may just be something that hasn't been done. But okay, yeah. So
I've been contacted by many people.
Yeah. Well, now that Lisa knows it's an issue, it can be addressed. Thank you.
No worries. And then secondarily, additionally excited that there's public comment, but where would the public go to locate the agenda, and when would it be posted? For instance, for today, where would the agenda for today's meeting be posted? When was it posted? And how would the public locate that?
The auditor's office posts it, and doesn't that usually get posted online?
Public meeting page actually has the agenda to the right. Yeah, it gets posted online, the agenda for the meeting, but that's a work in progress too. It's not going to happen 10 days out, but there is a 10-day posting in by statute in the newspaper, which we for any new funding we're talking about. So any new funding is posted on the bulletin board, same thing. The same advertisement we put in the paper shows up on the bulletin board in the courthouse, and along with the agenda and on the website.
Public meeting page, because it'll have every upcoming meeting, and to the right.
It has video where you can see it too.
Or you can go live. It'll usually during live meetings, and usually have the meeting up 2, 3, 4 days depending on your workload after the meeting. Okay. And it's bookmarked. It's very, very quick to go through.
Okay, and then sorry, last question. Will, from now on, there be a posting stating that the public can comment because they haven't been able to for so long? I wouldn't know how they would know they could now.
Maybe that's something we can put on the agenda moving forward. So, okay. Is there anyone else from the public that, and again, we're really wanting to keep this to the item that's on the table right now, which is the ARPA funding. So if there's anyone else from the public that wants to speak specifically to the ARPA funding, now would be the time.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just if I may, I just got on to check mine, and she is correct. When you click on my name, my email is not there.
Okay.
That's something that's,
Yeah, that's been an issue for a
Okay.
while, Lisa.
Yeah, that'll be
And I
fixed.
know,
It was there at one time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
yes,
that's all.
yeah, it was there just probably a month ago, but it's not there now.
Okay,
Yeah.
next.
I'm Jody Norick, and I just had one quick question. There's a lot of good things on here that I see that they're putting on here. I just had a question, and it's not that I'm opposed to it or for either way, but I noticed the health department wanted to build a storage facility for a truck, and it was quite a bit of money. So I didn't know, where are they storing that now, or do they not have any storage place for that, or just curious about that?
Thank you. Okay.
Especially would like to, they're happy to order.
Yeah.
Right now, they're borrowing space. This is primarily for the mobile unit that they now have. It's currently stored in the EMA facility. The goal is to build this new storage building adjacent to that to be able to give them more storage space, not just for the mobile unit, but also for all the PPE that we have accumulated, and to be able to stage for various things moving forward. So.
And as someone that sat on that committee, I think we were all a little bit unsure about the price. It seemed a little bit high, but then when you looked into drainage, earthwork, parking lot, all of those other things that would be required, it's not just simply a pool building, and so that was a question we had to get answered.
Yeah, there's also some grant funding that goes along with that, so this is an additional portion of that, and it has to be a climate-controlled building, the rest of the facilities and stuff. So.
That was one thing I failed to mention that's kind of exciting to me is the just under $3 million in proposals. It actually leverages $500,000 from other sources. So it's making our money stretch a little further. So.
The only question, if I can ask real quick, the process of this, and I know there was one comment up here, the process is there's many different people on this board. You submit, and I wanted to let the public know how the proposals are. So you get the proposal, you got them up, and you bring them in front of a board, several people on the board. Then it goes to the commissioners, and it comes to the council. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call the first group a board. It's really a very informal group of a loose group. I think I use the term committee, not recognizing that committee in the county world is very different than committee in the public side. I come from the public sector where we have committees for everything, committees to make committees. And so I use the term committee probably out of turn, if we're honest. It's a very loose group of that Commissioner Richwine asked to get together to vet ideas and just bounce ideas off each other.
Which, I mean, you guys vote on that committee.
I wouldn't say we vote, we discuss.
You discuss, okay. I just want to let everyone know to be open with the process of how everything is presented to and the timeline of the proposal.
So I think we've heard from anyone in the public that wanted to come up. Didn't see anyone else jumping up excitedly to speak. So at this point, would there be a motion?
You want to close it, Councilman?
No, we don't.
We don't have to close the public session, okay. Yeah, I make a motion that we approve what's in front of us for the ARPA.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, and second by Councilman Councilman Alexander. Is there any discussion as part of the council?
One quick question. How much monies are you looking at to fund these initial proposals?
This list totals just under $3 million. It's 2.997, I believe.
So how much does that leave us to play with?
We have 26.1, 25.
25.93 or something like that.
Still got about 22. Okay, any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I want to add something in response to the concern that we had about the city of Anderson and whether the county's ARPA funds was going to be assisting in that community. The city of Anderson, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ken, is at $24 million is what the city of Anderson received, $23.1 million. And they have had a couple public meetings to determine how the approach that the city councilor will use, and of course the mayor has an initiative about that too. But they, obviously they have their approach to spending their funds, and therefore the city, each town has been given a certain amount of money based on population, and so the county's funds are for county utilization, and the county makes those decisions. And so, anyway.
Okay. Next on the agenda is general fund requests. We have a request for machinery and equipment by Dr. Abbott. I was told that Lisa Cannon may be presenting this one.
Lisa Cannon, IT Director. I had been asked by the original individual who got this quote. He handed it off to me to handle, and which is just because this is an IT issue. We want to add cameras through the network into the existing dispatch and EMA camera system. These 3 cameras would be one located at the entrance that we just put the fob system on, and one would be pointed toward the door of the cooler, and then one would be pointed toward the garage door. We also at that time asked if maintenance would go ahead and brighten the area, because it's going to be hard to get pictures the way it is because of the angles and how high up the ceilings are. Prior to meeting with the coroner and first deputy, Jacob Johnson and I went and surveyed the scene, or whatever you want to say. We went and looked, and we talked about it as to where these needed to go. And then when the coroner and Catherine came, they agreed that those were where they had intended for them to go to. So we had come to an agreement about that. So I am asking either into his budget or mine, somebody's budget, that we put, I guess it was advertised for the coroner, so this $7391.88, so that we can get this ordered and he can begin utilizing that cooler.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Make a motion approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Emery and a second by Councilman Reese to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you. I'll get this ordered tomorrow.
Thank you. The next item under general fund, with regard to the coroner's budget, that was a reduction of $6,370.15 from their part-time line item. If you remember, last month, the council used its sick pay buyout to pay for the fuel and labor costs that were incurred by the highway department to continue to make this portable trailer operational. That money that was spent out of the highway department had to be reimbursed, so we chose to do that last month out of our sick payout. We are expecting with retirements that line item of ours will be expended this year, and so this would be removing that money, putting it back in the general fund from the coroner's budget, which would then allow us later on in our agenda to discuss reappropriating that back into what we use to pay for his fuel expenses. So
Where's this
it's on the
it's on the second page.
Go together.
Yeah, I think
Go together.
that's all right.
The assumption would be that if this one passes, then we could go on and appropriate it then. Obviously, if this one would not
So we need
pass.
to put it back, we're reducing it and then put it back in our budget.
Right.
Okay. I make a motion. Move.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Vaughn and a second by Councilman Reese. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next, on new money request.
Discussion. It was my Troy Abbott, Madison County Coroner, Dr. Troy Abbott, Madison County Coroner. It was my understanding that the temporary cooler was procured by the Commissioner's office, and that was what their expenses was since we weren't budgeted for that. This is kind of an arrangement where someone dates something that I'm forced to marry it, and I was not budgeted for that. And I think that's something that needs to be looked into, because I think that this is not fair to my budget to have things removed when we weren't anticipating this were the pandemic. I gave you some information to show how much cases we're up, 547 cases last year, and we're already up this way. And we've also got our percentages that we can show you that our autopsy rates are down compared to previous years. But I'm just showing you that we are doing an excellent job in the coroner's office with what little funds we have, and we are improving things. And to have money withheld from us on a very shoestring budget is I don't feel is appropriate.
Okay.
Councilman Gill.
Yes, sir.
And I understand what Dr. Abbott's saying, but the only issue I have with that is to be fair, and I like to be fair to every office holder and to representative of the taxpayers, we have doubled that budget, I believe. We have doubled that budget from prior years, so.
In 2021, they
right,
spent more than double. This year, we did an increase. It wasn't quite double for this year.
Right,
but
but I mean, what I'm saying, we have put more money than prior years in that budget.
At this point, I want to get us back to the agenda. We're going to move on to the Commissioner's Emergency Management request, which is Commissioner's Emergency Management. John, are you presenting on this one?
Sorry, everyone. Same information that we talked about at the last meeting and been through the personnel board. On both of these, the Commissioner's Administrator, Tom Ecker's position, and that adjustment that we've spoken about, and also in emergency management, the $24,380. We had the transfers earlier. We removed some things around. We've established a certain level of difference between those three positions that exist, and the total amount of the salaries expensed at EMA are reimbursable by 50%.
And I'm getting used to our new processes here, so my apologies. We will be, again, opening up for public comment for these. So if there are any questions for Commissioner Richline, then we'll open up for public comment on this.
Do you want to ask now or after public comment?
You can ask your questions now to the Commissioner.
So this is new money, but is this, you got one going to the administrator, correct?
Correct.
For $10,000? Why is that?
Just to bring that position up to where it should be in relation to other folks that are in that position across the state of Indiana.
Well, I guess, why didn't we do that at budget time, John? And I'm just trying to be fair to, why didn't we do it at budget time if you knew? Because I knew back in December I heard talk about it.
Well, we didn't know, because we didn't know that Dan was going to leave. And so, Dan was fine where he was at. But even Dan spoke to the personnel board and the county council when he decided he was going to leave, that, hey, this isn't enough, folks, for what this position is. Here's what other counties are paying their county administrators. We're still way under that, even with this adjustment. And so Dan started to prepare the council at that time, late summer, early fall, that, hey, I'm not going to be here. And to get somebody that's going to fulfill this position with the qualifications that we need, it's going to take a little bit more.
So does this person bring, I guess, what's the taxpayers going to see out of this? I mean, is it going to be more efficient and a commissioner? What's this new person that you brought over?
Tom was director of the EMA, and right. so Tom has that experience of working in county government, facilitating projects, as well as working with large groups of people, and so he's one of those people that we're lucky to have in this position, just like we were lucky to have Dan. So what are you going to see that's different? Well, Tom's bringing his own, flair to this position. Tom's background is in construction, and he's got a lot of experience there. So as we move forward in this jail, I think Tom's experience is going to be highly beneficial to us, in regards to my experience or Dan's experience, probably yours. He knows a lot of things that we do not. So for the next several years, I think his past experience is going to be very important for us.
The only thing I'm just worried about is just what other people see, like other employees, and I just wish it was in the budget. And that's only, and I'm just trying to be fair that I've always stuck by that since I've been on here. I wish it was in the budget, we presented that budget, we made a budget, and I feel like sometimes we get out of that. And not just picking on.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. And I agree with you. It's nice to do all that at budget. Sometimes things happen and you got to change course, and that's kind of where we're at on this one.
Okay.
Mr. President? Yes, Councilman.
Just for the council members and for the public, Dan had reached out to me before he publicly announced he was going to retire and wanted to meet with me. And we had this discussion. Back during budget time, we didn't realize Dan was leaving at that time. We were actually very fortunate to have Dan willing to do what he was doing for the pay he was doing it. Dan was in a position where he had another retirement coming in, so the money was not that big of an issue to Dan. But that was a very unique situation. Dan explained to me and presented me, and as well as John presented to the Personnel Committee, and we reported that report last month. The counties, administrators at other counties are making so much more money than what we are paying here for that position.
Like Hamilton County?
I'm sorry?
Like Hamilton County?
No, not Hamilton. We're throwing Hamilton out of that.
You guys like to throw it around quite a bit.
No, these are, again, comparable to the same size class of counties that we're looking at. Some of them even smaller. Several of them are smaller. That we're paying.
Do we have any figures on that? What kind of? What's the range?
We had her sent out probably was it midsummer, late summer. She sent a study, and what's in our email, she sent it to every one of us.
You get to meet sometimes every week. I just didn't know if we had a little comparison.
This position's been a work in progress. For some of you that haven't been involved in county government, when I first was a commissioner, it was just an office administrator's job. And I shouldn't say just, but it was an office administrator's job. And there were a lot more people that worked in the county commissioner's office that are no longer there, and positions that we just didn't fill. But as things evolved and the roles and the responsibilities got greater and greater, we transitioned to a county administrator's job. And Dan came to work in that position for what the office administrator's position was paying. And the county council realized the value of having somebody in that position and took it upon themselves to increase that wage one time. And so that, in my mind, was them trying to get where we needed to be with that group of council members. And now we're into that position where we need to get closer. I would tell you that this is still undervalued, but we're still...
Right, and if I may add to that too, or to finish my statement, whenever we had this job first opened up and Dan announced it to the public that he was retiring, we actually had somebody that was very qualified that was interested in the position, and once they saw the pay, they said no. They walked away from it. Right. And I had a conversation with that person, and they just said that there's just no way, not for what the job entails. I'm not willing to take on those responsibilities for that pay, and walked away. And I know that whenever Tom, actually, those discussions were happening, Tom was led to believe, and rightfully so, that this was something we were going to be addressing later. There were no guarantees, I understand that. But that, again, to be able to get Tom to put in for the job, that yes, we would be addressing this at a future point to try to address the pay issue and try to get it up. But even with the $10,000, just as John already touched on, with the $10,000 increase, it's still quite below the other counties of the same size, or again, even several counties smaller than ours for the county administrator's position.
Just to avoid this delving into our council discussion and making me forget, let's go ahead and open up for public comment on this specific issue, and then we'll have more time for council discussion and question. Yeah. Right. So is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this specific item? Okay.
Kelly Gaskell, Madison County Commissioner, District 1. I want to remind the council that I came before you and requested an increase in that position in February or March of 2020.
Was it denied?
Yes, it was. So I just want to remind you that 2 commissioners came asking for the same thing in 2020, and it was,
Can I, since you have her up here?
Again,
Okay.
the public comment is supposed to be for us listening.
Okay.
If it delves into
I'm just too
discussion,
excited. I get too excited.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting.
well, I am a commissioner, not just public comment.
right, but you're speaking during the public comment
We'll
section,
wait.
so we're here to listen.
We'll wait.
Okay. This is the deal. So Ben, Anthony, and Jerry, you 3 were the members. Mr. Vaughn was not, Diane was not, Rob was not. But you 3 were
I was too.
the one, I apologize, Fred was too. You were the 4 that were here, and you were the 4 that made the vote
Yes. Yes.
to Commissioner Phipps and I. And it was a different story than it is today. But take Tom out of the equation, I still would agree that that position deserves more, just like I did in 2020. It's just, this is a reflection of, we got to stop playing politics.
Mrs. Norick?
Jody North. My concern is that, and I'm not going to be the person that's going to say whether or not the position deserves the raise, because I know there's a lot of areas. My husband's a judge. I hear it from the courts. I hear it from the prosecutor's office. Has mentioned it many times. We have issues with many departments that have problems with pay. My concern is, and I understand that we didn't know at budget time that this was going to be an issue, but my question is, how many other people are going to come before the council this year and say, well, you know, I can't get anybody to do this job, so I need a raise. And, you know, at this time, when we're hiring this person, this is what the salary is for this. And hopefully we can find somebody to do that job. But I think raises need to be addressed at budget time, not in March of the year. We're just starting our budgets. You're opening a can of worms, and there's not just this particular position. There's other positions within the county that are way underpaid as well. And it's, where do we draw the line? Where do we establish this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do raises?
Thank you. Next.
So, Catherine Callahan, 303 John Street, LaPel. My concern here is that last year, Mr. Eckert made $50,530.72. Mr. Dykes made $46,568. Now, I don't know anybody within their right mind who would take another position knowing that that pay is lower than what I'm currently making. So for now, you come forward and say, hey, we're going to make this deal because they're going to make more money. The deal had to already be in place because we clearly already know what Mr. Dykes' salary is going to be. When you look at the commissioner's office and you look at all the people that are in there, there's 5 people. The salaries altogether, before you do this increase for Mr. Eckert, is over $200,000 in salaries. That doesn't even include the insurance benefits that these people are getting, and several of these are part-time employees, but they're getting full-time benefits and everything like that. So it just makes me wonder, 5 people with over $200,000 in annual salary, and then you have to throw in the health insurance. It's a lot of money for one department to be holding on to. But, you know, again, you go from $50,000 knowing that you're going to a position that makes $46,000. The deal had to be made way before this. So that's just a taxpayer looking at this, a woman who runs a business.
Is there anyone else from the public that wants to speak on this?
I'm Kate Smith, and I live on 11 Flintwood Drive. And I'm having trouble understanding why would you promise someone $10,000 when you don't have it?
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, then it would be time for council to have discussion, a motion, perhaps.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
when I first heard of this position being brought back, I was very disturbed. Very disturbed. Emory, you served on there with me, and several. Let's see, back in when did we get rid of the administrator? When did we do that? What year did we do that? Was that 20?
That was 2020, I believe.
2020. We got rid of that position, correct? And I believe they were without that position for 9 months. 9 months, 3/4 of a year, without that position. Did no one ever come up before this council and complain about them being without that position? No one in the entire time. But some way it got back on there. Now my question to John, are you guys part-time? What are you guys, full-time or part-time? Part-time. What does that mean? I mean, I went online because I wanted to find out what you guys do. I really did. I wanted to find, because I know several years when I came in, they had one guy who was a Democrat. He barely showed up. Mention his name. And it sounds like you guys are doing this as a part-time jobs. I'm just kind of mystified. Who in the world get paid $40-some thousand in this state, in this county, and do part-time work? Then, when I go online and look at the duties, quite a bit of duties on here. Quite a bit of duties and responsibilities of the county commissioners. When Dan would come up here, many times he'll come and represent the commissioner's office, and we'll question him, and you know it's true, what I'm about to say, Emory. We'll question him sometimes, and he didn't have the answer and had to get back to the commissioners and get back with us. Several times that happened. I don't understand the role of that person, because to me, he's just a mouthpiece for when you guys are not here. And if you guys divvied up, if Kelly was able to run that position 9 months, why is it that you guys can't do the same? How did you do that anyway? How did you pull that off?
Councilman Reese, again, this is our time to have a discussion amongst the council, so we're going to try to...
Well, I'm going to ask her a question, because I need to have an answer. Could I get her answer?
Well, Councilman Reese, if you would allow me to chair the meeting.
No, I mean,
we're having a discussion amongst the council right now. We're trying to do this in a more orderly fashion than to constantly be going back and forth.
I asked the question prior to her leaving. I said, you said you're going to let us come back and ask questions. Remember that before you left? I asked the question. You said, well, we're going to let her come back, and then the council will be able to ask questions. So I asked the question, or I would have asked it prior to her leaving. I mean, you got to have it. You can't have it both ways. Can I ask you a question now, or when do we do that?
Councilman Reese, right now is time for us as a council. There's not even a motion on the table right now. So perhaps we'd be in better order if we had a motion, if we actually had something we're discussing. Right now, you're bringing up history.
I'm trying to get the justification. I'm trying to get the justification of this position. That's all I'm asking. When for 9 months you didn't have it. That's what I'm trying to do. And then you got part-time workers. Where other departments have part-time workers?
If you remember, the reason they didn't have that position for 9 months is that at that time the commissioners were drastically overspending their budget without an appropriation for legal fees, and the council made a decision to save money somehow because they were spending far more money than what they were appropriated.
The question still stays, how were they able to do the job for 9 months? I know the reason why you did it. I guess I'm trying to get it. If we're able to do it for 9 months, can we do it for 12?
Well,
can we do it?
Again, right now, we have the president of the commissioners. This is a commissioner decision that they're trying to do, not one individual member of the commissioners. I don't want this meeting to turn into an argument amongst commissioners. They have their own meeting for that. So I'm trying to keep us to the single item on this agenda, which is,
I'm just going by what you told me.
Does the administrator end up getting a raise or not? As we stand currently, we don't even have a motion on the table.
Or it's just discussion right now.
Well, we should have a motion prior to discussion. So I'm trying to get us back to Robert's Rules of Order, get a motion on the table before we...
Well, you lost me, so okay.
Well,
whatever you do. I asked you, could I talk to her then? And then no, we'll bring her back. You remember that one? You remember that when I asked you that? I said, can I ask her a question? You said, no, we'll bring her back. You remember that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
What I'm trying to do, because when it turns chaotic and it gets out of order, I don't remember, and other people don't remember because it's chaos. What I'm trying to do is get us back into order. Right now, what we need is we either need a motion or we need to move on. And so I would ask, is there a motion?
Can I ask our attorney something?
Yes.
Ted, do we need to, as Councilman Gill alluded to make a motion and then someone second and we discuss it, or can we have discussion before that? Can you clarify, please?
Generally, the procedure is to make a motion, second, to say discussion, and then once discussion is over, then call for the question.
So we really need to do the...
Yeah, there needs to be something before the council, which what you're discussing.
Right.
Discuss.
That's
Okay.
the motion.
Okay.
Generally, the proper procedure is the motion before the
Right.
Okay.
So we're trying to get back to that so that we're in compliance with the rules that govern this body.
Well, I think we need a little more information to make a proper decision. Right. I think we ought to, I'm making a motion, we table this, get a report from the Personnel Committee on the comparable costs for this position in other counties. No one has really told us what they were exactly. So, well, I believe that we should at least table this for one more month and bring it back when we have more information.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this for a month. Is there any discussion?
Well, this position did get a 3% raise, right, along with the regular budget?
Yep.
I believe so.
Yes.
So,
So what's going to be the, what will be the process? Well, if we...
Well, the motion that was made would be to ask the Personnel Committee to provide a report.
The Personnel Committee already provided a report, Mr. President, if I may, and the 3 members of the Personnel Committee voted in favor to present this to the full council. So the Personnel Committee's already done what's being asked to be done. Now, as far as providing the numbers, again, that was provided by the Commissioner's Office and by HR. It was not provided by the Personnel Committee. It was provided to the Personnel Committee. So again, that would be up for HR and or the Commissioner's Office to provide those numbers, not the Personnel Committee. But the Personnel Committee's already heard on this. It was discussed at length in the Personnel Committee, and we voted 3-0 to present it to the full council, which is what we're doing now. So it would just be repetitive to turn around and repeat the same process, take this for the Personnel Committee again. That would be ridiculous to do that.
I'll amend my motion then to say that we should table it until we get more information from the commissioners in a comparison of other counties and what they're paying, because we don't have that information tonight. And so I'm not being combating on it. I think that to make it an informed decision, I need to know what those numbers are in other counties. Mikhail, do you second my amendment to that?
Table it one month.
sorry, I was asking if you had that copy of what...
I didn't print it out.
Ted, do you have something in your
Yes, there's already a motion, it's seconded, proper people would be to vote now.
So he withdrew it, though, didn't he, Ted?
No, I wanted, well,
Or he amended it,
to
okay, second.
satisfy Anthony's concerns.
So the procedure would be to go ahead and vote on this, and then if it fails, then or could there be a motion to amend made by somebody else, the main motion? But the cleanest way probably is just to vote, and then if it fails, a new motion could be presented. Just looking for clean. Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion on the original motion made by Councilman?
No, roll call vote.
Original motion
Can
is...
you repeat what the motion is?
I think I can summarize it, but the original motion that was made was to table this for a month so that we could get further information from the Personnel Committee on the issue, basically. So if there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote.
Roll call vote.
And Councilman Bond's asking for a roll call vote.
Councilman Reese.
No.
Councilwoman Likens.
Yes.
Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Steele.
No.
Councilman Emery.
No.
Councilman Vaughn.
Yes.
President Gale.
No. So that did not Pass. So now we are, once again, needing a motion or needing to move on.
What kind of motion you need to be able to ask questions? I'm serious about this. This is very serious. Let me share something with you. This is very serious.
Councilman Reese, we need a motion so that we actually have something we're discussing. Right now, we have nothing that we're technically discussing as a body because there is not a motion on the.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the request as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Emery to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilman Steele. Okay, now is there any discussion?
Yeah, can I ask questions now?
Would you like to ask a question to the council? Again, part of what we're trying to implement here is a sense of order and the constant interaction with the audience.
I don't have the ability to have information as you guys do. I don't have that ability. I learned on the fly. In fact, I kind of learned about this a week or two ago. Had other things going on, but I tried to pick it up a couple of days ago. Upon me picking up some information, I had some questions. I even called Ms. Gaskell, asked her some questions. And when I found out what I found out, I'm like, this needs to be discussed. You know, you ran this without a guy. And then you're going to give him a guy, then give $10,000. I mean, he had the guy, they already had him. But I'm still trying to figure out, what do they do? What do they do okay. In talking to Ms. Gaskell, she stated that when she was the president and ran the commissioners, she ran that for 9 months. She did that position for 9 months. Sure, I think it was taxing on her supporting cast, those in there, but it was done. No one ever came up here and complained about that. So I'm getting at, how do you, what are these, what commissioners, what do they do? Because it seems like every cycle you have two working and one don't. It seems like every cycle there's two working and one don't. When I first came in, you had a Hardin one working. Then the next you come in, you had Phipps wasn't working. Now, I think the year after that, I don't know for sure, but I heard John wasn't working. So it's like every year you have two that's not working, but we get all three working. I don't think we need that position. And this is the only department we have, four people. We have three commissioners and get administrative, and I'm not getting a full understanding. What do they do? What is it that they do to warrant they need an additional person? Okay, I mean, I guess if you have a workload, if your workload is so that, hey, my workload is so that we're supposed to be here 29 hours a week, but we're here 40 hours a week, and we need to put somebody in. I can understand that, but I'm not seeing that. And I'm just being honest, I've been here several years. I'm not seeing that, and I'm not that great. I'm gonna tell you, they ain't been up here, but I wasn't that great about their work anyway. So be honest about it, I don't see it. And I got a copy of the job description. It said the person needs a bachelorette degree. That's what it says, needs a bachelorette degree. You guys need to get this stuff and read this information. And there were some other things on there that I don't think he qualified for. Dan was a very special guy. Dan sat on council, and then he was able to move over to that. But he was very unique. He knew both sides of the aisle. So I guess it justified paying him what we paid. But I don't see a person coming and picking up where Dan left off, don't have the skills Dan had, as well as we're going to boost them up $10,000. I'm questioning, do we need the position? I know it can't be done now because we already had a position, God bless, but I've questioned that. It needs to be questioned. It's not fair to the taxpayers that not too long ago you was getting rid of a person for $30,000. And now we're kind of giving them a free chance to stay home with extra person, and they're making good money, man. $45,000 is quite a bit of money for part time. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I called down to Indianapolis. They gave me the information, a list of what they do, and I'm like, well, if these three can do it, why can't our three do it? So that's where I'm at. I mean, Is there
any other discussion on the matter of the administrator?
Yes, Councilman Gale, I have a couple comments. I try to stick by the same guideline and to treat everybody the same. I feel like in a county council position, my view is I represent taxpayers and I represent the county employees. I'm kind of like a liaison. I picture the county council person being between both. And I don't want to play politics with what I say with what office holder. I try to treat everybody the same and keep it in mind representing the taxpayers. We gave a 3% raise, and I stated this earlier last month and the month before. Not that I don't think, and I want to look at Mr. Richwine, that I don't think he deserved it. I'm just saying I wish it was in, and I stated up there and you understood, I wish it was in the budget. But we're giving these raises in the middle, we're 3 months in. Is it fair to other county employees? It's not what you justify, it's what do other people see? What does the taxpayer see? Right now we have an economy that's out of whack. We got gas prices going through the roof. We got food, and we got all these issues, and now we're going to give a $10,000 raise that someone, and Councilman Reese is right. Not saying that the person they picked is not, but we need to be fair. We made a budget. We need to stick by the budget. And to continue to give out money when everything's uncertain down the road. We got some pretty good numbers. The auditor gave us pretty good numbers. But to continue just to give a $10,000 raise, it's hard for me to vote, and I have to stick by my guns on that. We should have done other than a budget. We make a budget. We might as well if we don't stick by the budget, we might as well just do away with the county council. I mean, our job is to stick by the budget and make a budget like every other taxpayer household does in this county. And that's all I have to say.
Is there any further discussion from the council?
Can anybody tell us what the salary is currently with the 3%?
50, about 40, with the raise, it's 51.
Rick has got that for us. Okay.
And at 50.
Oh, we may have it here.
I don't think it might be that high. I don't think it's going to be that high.
It's 50.
48,431 is what you get.
48,431 is in his budget book. Is that what you've got?
I got a sheet that has 21.
Yeah. So just a hair over 48,000.
This is
Is that
21.
before the raise or after, Councilman Gale?
That would
Right,
be,
this 21 when it was 22.
that would be,
We're trying to figure out what 22 is.
That's that may be without.
yeah, so that would be we've got the information here. This would be with the raise.
2 meetings each month, 2 hours each meeting.
Yeah, it's 46,568 is the current.
46,568.
Is what I'm
No,
seeing.
that's 21, isn't it?
That's what I'm seeing here on this sheet.
I think that's 21.
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, that does say 21, so that's that page.
That's more true. Rick's going to get that.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be what, 3% more?
So our best bet would be to allow Rick to give us the current. So I think we have it here, because I think the next column over was the 3%. While Rick is verifying that for us, is there any other discussion for the council on this?
The assistant. Do you know what that is? That was Rhonda Burden. Is she assistant to that guy? To the county administrator?
She's the office manager for the commissioner's office.
Commission assistant, administrator assistant / office manager.
Yeah, she's a secretary for all 3 of the commissioners, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
I know that, but I see administrative assistant on here. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, Rick is back here with.
She made 31.
County administrator for 2022 adopted budget was $49,882.
Okay.
49,000, that's what I thought. That was after.
884.
That's before the 3% raise.
Okay. So let's go ahead.
You're the commissioners also, but they're where they're at this year?
I'm sorry? And that did include the 3%.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You said you had commissioners?
Commissioners are for 2022 approved budget $43,760.
Yeah.
Well, some people, decades.
Okay.
Some people.
So the motion on the table is to approve this $10,000 raise for the administrator. Okay, if there's no further discussion on this, I'll call for the question. So let me make sure Fred's ready here. All in favor say aye.
Roll call vote.
A roll call has been requested. Todd?
Councilman Reese?
No.
Councilwoman Likens?
No.
Councilman Alexander?
No.
Councilman Steele?
Yes.
Councilman Henry?
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn?
No.
President Gale?
Doesn't really matter. I'll say yes. It fails. So we'll move on to the next one, which was the Emergency Management Administrator. Let's see. Commissioner Richline, would you want to give us a little input on that?
Slightly disappointed. Have been through this already, so we've already made those transfers. This final new money appropriation, sets us up in that third full-time position that we haven't had at the EMA department. 50% reimbursement for all of these salaries from the state.
So then, if we appropriate this, you get additional money from the state of Indiana to make the position.
Out of that new money appropriation, we'll get half of it back.
Okay. Are there any other questions for?
So this is for, this is already salaries in the budget, John?
Yes.
And why, again, I'm going to ask.
Tom moved into the director's position for the administrator's position for the county. Jeff moved into his position. We hired a new person to take Jeff's position. That was actually Jeff was actually in the administrator's position. We flipped those roles and responsibilities, so we've created some new job descriptions there. And the other position was funded at $10,000 and something, which means that it was, pardon me, that we were paying $20,000 for that position. So,
so is this new money or is this for flipping?
New money.
Well, why wasn't it in the budget? I know you're going to get tired of me.
Nobody moved till the end of the year.
Yeah, these were all position changes that happened after the budget was created.
So what? We didn't know this before?
These were all position changes that happened after the budget was created. These were after the end of the year.
But I guess if it's equal and we're switching positions, why do they need more money? That's the only thing that concerns me. Why are we putting more money in after we did it?
Again, this was reported on last month at the Personnel Committee report. This is a position that was moving from a part-time to a full-time. Whenever they were interviewing for the administrator's position, they identified a candidate. They identified two candidates who they really wanted, but for the part-time position, for the part-time pay, they were offering. Of course, no one was going to leave the full-time to take the part-time job. So that's when John came in and presented this before the Personnel Committee last month, requesting that they be able to make that a full-time position to get this person with quite the pedigree of certifications. Again, it'd be a huge benefit, and it is 50% reimbursed by the state for that. So we had a great opportunity to not only hire or keep one good person in the administrator's job, but bring in a second person, and by creating that and making that a full-time position. So this is the difference between the part-time and the full-time, and again, 50% of that will be reimbursed from the state.
So then we get like 5,000.
So this is not simply a raise for someone that's doing their current position. This is moving someone from part-time.
Right. They completely revamped the positions.
So it's a very different situation than just a flat-out raise.
Than what it was during budget time.
So basically, what is the net effect to the budget if you're looking at a $24,000 increase that we're going to get reimbursed by $12,000? Are we increasing that? Technically, when we get reimbursed,
we have to pay it up front. We have to pay it first, and then get reimbursed after we get reimbursed.
But are we getting reimbursed 12,000 or is it 24,000?
12,000.
12,000, half of the 24,380.
So for the cost to the county in the end of $12,000 and some change, we move a person from part-time to full-time.
Has this person been hired?
No,
No.
waiting for the funding to be able to hire that person.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I make a motion that we approve this based on the fact that we do have a need for an emergency management.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Alexander, a second by Councilman Emery. Is there any discussion amongst the council?
I guess I'm confused on, we have a position already, but then we're swapping duties. So this is not a totally separate new position. So we're John was up here and he said that we swapped duties. So we're hiring a new person. So I'm kind of confused on what's going on here with this position.
Well,
Is this something that's not hired? You just said it's not hired.
Someone vacated the part-time position. They're wanting to make it a full-time position before they could hire as a full-time position.
Is there really a need for that?
Well, emergency management, there's a big need for emergency management. Yes, there is.
Yeah.
But they went how long with what they had? And all of a sudden we're like adding it. I guess maybe I'm not looking at it right. I don't know.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call vote.
Okay, we've got a request for a roll call vote.
Councilman Reese.
I'm going to vote no. Reason why I don't understand the justification from going from to have the job increased, the workload increased, to move it from part-time to full-time. So I'm going to vote no.
Councilwoman Likens.
Yes.
Councilman Alexander.
Yes.
Councilman Steele.
Yes.
Councilman Emery.
Yes.
Councilman Vaughn.
No.
President Gale.
Yes, that passes. Next we have courthouse, Joe Humphreys.
Joe probably scared now.
Evening, council. I am requesting into my part-time, $25,200. I had originally budgeted for one of my part-time persons, it cost $19,000 to get me through the year. I was only given 12. I went before the personnel board. They agreed that I need to bring it before the council. I am also needing another part-time person to help with custodial duties. We have one full-time custodian on day shift. He has a set schedule. If we have an office, and this has happened numerous times, if we have an office that gets COVID and they have to vacate that office, he gets pulled to go clean that office. That puts him behind on everything he's got to get done during the day. So what doesn't get done during the day gets put back onto a smaller custodial crew in the afternoons. What doesn't get done during the day gets put to them. They already have a set schedule. So in turn, they don't get something done. And when they don't get something done, then we get the complaints. Then we have to pick it back up on the day crew, and I only have one person. So it is a domino effect. I did budget the $19,000 for a $12 rate, or put the part-time person up to $12. They were only making $10.50 an hour. So first of the year, that person gets bumped to $12 an hour. I was not getting any candidates whatsoever at $10.50 an hour. The second person will be on days to help eliminate the workload on the afternoon crew. And if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Real quick, what's your lowest hourly pay in one of your employees? Are they around, what's their?
12.
12?
Yes.
That's the part-time or
Yes.
full-time?
Part-time.
What's your full-time?
Full-time, we're about 1367, somewhere around in there. And that's on the custodial side. my opinion, it needs to be a little bit higher than that,
Yes, it does.
considerably higher.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Humphrey, why wasn't this in your budget? I mean,
It was.
why wasn't this figured in your budget?
Which position? The $12,000 that you guys already gave me?
We do a budget every year, and you're wanting to hire another person part-time, right?
Right.
Why wouldn't you ask that for in the budget? Did you ask for it in the budget?
No, I did not.
Why not?
My custodial supervisor came to me with a need that I didn't see. However, she is my supervisor that handles all the custodial duties for this building. She brought it to my attention. I felt it was a good idea, so I brought it to the personnel board.
Are there any other questions?
Comment.
My only comment is, and I know we went to the personnel board. Personnel board takes everything and puts it in front of the council.
My comment, as maintenance, working there, a lot of your maintenance departments picked up extra duties due to the COVID protocol. And the COVID protocol isn't just a spray Lysol and walk out the room. It's very tedious work. You have to wipe down pretty much everything that you can really think of, and it takes a minute or two. So if you're doing that every day, which you should be, that's an additional increase in your workload that no one really considers because we haven't really sat down and looked what it does before. And that there is a reasonable request because we've done the same thing over to the city. We had to increase.
I mean, for one of the custodial staff members to go into an office and clean it, they just can't take the spray and spray the keyboard. Okay, they have to put it on a rag. Then, you have to make sure that you don't mess the computer up. You have to wipe the chairs down. You have to wipe the phones down. Door handle. You name it, they have to clean it. And if we have a situation, let's say in planning, that there alone, that's at least a minimum of 2.5 hours to clean that room. That's a good sized room.
Joe, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
What we're just now finding out that this absolutely qualifies for the ARPA funding.
Yeah, I was just.
And is there anything in your budget to allow you to survive until you submit a request through the ARPA committee to get reimbursed for this particular budget? Because I think that we've just described exactly one of the things that would be a high priority for the ARPA funding.
If I may add, there are some stipulations with ARPA funding. Let's Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one of the items actually that does not qualify for ARPA funding.
Really?
Personnel time. Yeah, and there's very strict stipulations on that. It has to be, and this is one of the things that we've been talking with, or that we will be talking with the courts about. But it's very specific about that they can't use it for personnel. Really, the short answer is because they don't want to get to 2026 and have people being laid off because the positions aren't funded. So other parts of it are, and Joe has been talking with us about different things to submit, but not the actual personnel costs.
Thank you.
Well, under those circumstances and understanding the COVID situation and the importance of cleanliness, I make a motion we approve this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now, again, I'm trying to get back into the public comment for new appropriations. So we do have a motion and a second, but I would invite, if there's anyone from the public that would like to come and speak specifically to this request, now would be the time to do that.
Me again. I'm sitting here listening, and it is so frustrating, guys, because we've been dealing with COVID now for at least a year and a half. We knew at budget time what our cleaning, and I'm not trying to pick on Joe by any means. I'm talking as a whole with your budget. These department heads knew at budget time the frustrations they had for the last year with COVID. These departments knew at budget time the problems they were having with hiring people. Now, I do know that there are several departments that came to this council and asked for raises, and they were denied. But now we are here in March, and now all of a sudden we're going to give these raises. And I'm like, why weren't they given at budget time? That's when these raises should have been given. These department heads knew these problems at budget time. So it's not just their problem, it's also the council's problem, because these things should have been addressed at budget time. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, so we do have a motion to approve on the table and a second. We've heard from the public. Now, if there's any discussion on that motion.
Mr. President, if I may, this particular request is not for a pay increase. This is for a new added position for a part-time position. Again, the council is just not made aware of it. They weren't made aware of it during budget time. So again,
Actually, we cut Joe's budget.
yeah, we actually reduced that budget in that particular line because we're looking at past year's expenses. But to say that all pay issues, all positions should be handled at budget time, as a concept, I would agree with. But there's always going to be those things coming up. We can't prepare for everything. We can't know everything in advance. We can't know every situation. So there are going to be situations where we are going to have to address personnel issues, we're going to address pay issues and the like, and that's the reason we have a personnel committee to begin with. And Joe did bring this for the personnel committee, and matter of fact, he brought his supervisor in here, and she did a very nice job of explaining the need for that. And with that, I would encourage the council to vote in favor of this.
Is there any other discussion?
So to be clear, this is going to be, this person we're going to give, which is 50% back, you get from the state, is that correct?
No, that was for the cities.
Oh, that was another, sorry. This person's going to be doing extra cleaning only, basically. Is this what is that clarified?
They're going to be another part-time cleaning staff.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
I'll second Councilman Emery's thing on that. It's cleaning staff.
Okay, so any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that passes. The last new money items for county council related, Rick's going to run through those for us.
Okay, good evening. Once again, we're looking at in the 16300 longevity pay line. If you'll recall, if you think back to last year and a couple of years before that, what we've done after the first of the year is went in and found what longevity pay was not paid out because possibly it was budgeted, but somebody left before they got the extra $75, that kind of thing. Throughout the entire county, that total came up to $15,075. So we'd like to decrease those various departments, taking what longevity was left, and then we would like to place that in the 16900 sick pay line within the council's budget. That's sick payout is what that is, or retirement payout. So we would like to place that $15,000 there. We'd also like to take the earlier decrease you took of $63,7015 and also reappropriate that in the sick pay line item, which you had to pay someone else's invoices for. So what we tried to do this year in the budget was include everything that we knew we were going to have to pay. We hit that pretty close, but believe it or not, we know of 3 very large payouts that are going to happen. That's based on the county's policy handbook benefits. They get paid out their sick time if they didn't take them along the way. And we had 3 of them that was going to equal about $100,000, $90-something thousand. You budgeted $100,000 for that. And we're just asking to take that longevity and secure that appropriation that would have been paid and budgeted for another employee benefit and move it over into that payout in case you need it. If not, it's sitting there. It won't get spent if you don't have to pay it out. And also, like I said, reappropriate that 637015, which you moved last month to pay some bills with.
Yeah, when I was reading this, Rick, and the rest of the council, when we get to budget time, I'm going to ask you communicate to budget, if they know of people or have an idea that people may be retiring, that be something they include in their budgets.
We could do that. That'd be great.
We'll accumulate it on our end like we did this year for
Yep.
the first time. But last year, we just took just a stab at prior expenses for the year.
Yeah, that's right. We took
And
history.
assuming all is the same, that's fine, but nobody foresaw three large payouts like that.
That's exactly right. So, yeah, we took averages of multiple years and upped it to 100. It just so happens it's a fluke that we have 3 long-term employees that we're going to be paying, which is going to eat up that entire amount.
Okay. Mr. President, make a motion to approve it. Presented.
Okay,
I second.
we have a motion and a second again. We want to get to the public comment since this is a new appropriation. So if there's anyone in the public that wants to speak specifically to this item, now's your time. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion amongst the council?
On longevity, I've been on the council since 2019, and every year I've brought it up that we've been talking about doing something with this longevity pay. And I don't know whether the commissioners have to make that decision, or the council. Who would make a decision to make a decision about this longevity pay that is been putting us in crisis mode a lot of times?
I think what you mean is payout for anybody retiring. All their accumulated paid time off is what it is.
Right.
They may have comp time. They may have sick days, things like that. That would be a commissioner function to address any change in that policy. But right now, they're entitled to the sick days that they didn't take. I have some people right now that are maxed, and every month and to be honest with you, I appreciate those employees, and every month when those that take their sick days continue on and get another day sick day, those people don't gain anything because they never take off sick. So, thankfully I have some of those, and I really appreciate them.
Rick, we have a cap on our longevity, don't we? Do we have a cap that we pay?
Longevity cap, is it $1,800 on longevity?
For the years or just months?
$1,800, I think, on longevity pay. $1,875.
Which county you get a year, Rick?
Okay, it's 25 years.
25 years. 25. Yeah. How long you been here, David?
All right.
So you stopped at 25 years.
Look out when she retires.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask this question just
if I have the answer, I'll.
Sometimes, not now, but sometimes I'd like to know if we were to uncap that, how we would look at that expense. If we were to uncap that, how we would look at it.
Vote in the budget?
Yeah.
Not everybody got 37 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me what you're saying now, Fred.
I like to look at, if we were to uncap it, the longevity, uncap it 25 years and just say whatever number if you've been here 60 years, you get 60 years longevity.
That would have to be a commissioner function also.
No, I just want to know what the number would be that we present to the commission. I get what you.
Back to the motion and the second that we have to approve these items as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Next, we move on to salary ordinances. We have 3 that are second readings, so these can be passed tonight, which is a simple majority vote. The first would be salary ordinance 2022-2E, an ordinance adjusting the salary of the employees for the year 2022. This was out of Public Safety Fund for the prosecutors. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander, a second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
At advice of council, I will recuse myself from this vote.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes. Next would be salary ordinance 2022-2F, an ordinance adjusting the salary of the employees for the year 2022. This was public safety funds for the courts. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Alexander.
Second.
Second by Councilman Steele. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. The next one is salary ordinance 2022-2G, an ordinance adjusting the salary of the employees for the year 2022. This is, again, public safety fund going towards problem-solving courts. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Alexander.
Second.
Second by Councilman Emery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. We have three more. These are first readings. If I recall, this first one, salary ordinance 2022-3C, this was for the sheriff / jail. If I remember, this is one that we made the appropriation last month, but there wasn't a salary ordinance prepared. It was just left off. So had it been here last month, this would have been the second reading. So we can, this is officially the first reading.
So if this passes unanimously,
It
we
could
give
pass
them
with unanimous consent.
make a motion that
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilman Vaughn, a second by Councilman Alexander. Any discussion?
I encourage to vote unanimous if we can to move this on since we delayed it one extra month.
Okay.
I would go along with Councilman Steele on that. Let's try not to cause our employees to wait any longer than what they have to on this.
You're gonna pay me.
All right.
I'll buy your lunch.
I'll see your name in the
Is
orders.
there any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimously, so it passes on the first reading.
Thank you.
This next one, salary ordinance 2022-3D. This is general fund for county admin emergency management. Now this one, I believe we would have to amend because the county administrator appropriation didn't happen. So would we need a motion to amend this, or do we just approve it?
You could keep it, there just wouldn't be any money.
Okay.
in the budget to fund it.
Right.
So there would be a line item for that salary.
Okay.
So you could do two ways. That way, or present to a motion to amend the salary ordinance that we had.
Right. Okay.
I make a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we remove the admin from the, request.
second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second simply to remove the administrator from this request. So that, just making sure we're clear, and also because this is a first reading, that would not actually be an approval of this emergency management. So, any discussion on that motion? Second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we have removed that county administrator from this. So at this point, it stands as a first reading unless somebody wants to make a motion and try to entertain passing the other unanimous consent.
So this is going to be Councilman Miguel, this is, so remove the county administrator, and then this ordinance can be from the general fund for,
For the appropriation we made,
well, we
Under
remove the county administrator, but emergency management, what's that one?
That's the one we approved.
that's the one that we approved
When did we approve it? Last
A while
month?
ago.
tonight.
That was the one funded 50%.
Okay, so if there's,
You want me to do that, or
if you'd like to, we can try. Okay.
I make a motion to approve the salary ordinance 2022-3D as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Alexander, a second by Councilman Emery. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, this one will move on to a second reading next month. And finally, we have salary ordinance 2022-3E, an ordinance adjusting the salary of employees for the year 2022, and this is salaries in grant funds. So these are grant funding.
I make a motion that we approve the salary ordinance 2022-3E. And basically, This is a grant fund, so it doesn't affect the general
Okay.
fund.
So we have a motion by Councilman Alexander and a very prompt motion, which I appreciate, by Councilman Bond. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that one passes unanimously. Are there any committee reports for tonight? If not, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion made by Council.
I was gonna say, Mr. Kane, I think he's got something to present next month, if he can get him one.
Yeah, I'll touch base with him. So Councilman Emery made the motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Steele seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all.
That's not fun.